Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Federal officials discuss what's being done to protect Canadians from the new COVID-19 variant known as Omicron. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and BC Premier John Horgan have formed a joint committee to help so many British Columbians impacted by devastating floods. And a Christmas house in West Lethbridge is helping to raise funds for two great causes.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Alberta health officials have contacted people who have traveled from one of the southern African countries of interest for the Omicron COVID-19 variant in the past 14 days. Dr. Dean Shaw made the statement following news that Ontario detected Canada's first two known cases of Omicron on Sunday in Ottawa. Quebec also reported a confirmed case on Monday. Hinshaw did not specify how many travelers in Alberta have been contacted, but said they must quarantine for 14 days from their return date and get tested.
At this time, there have been no cases of this variant detected in Alberta. However, as we have seen with other variants, it is very likely that Omicron will eventually reach our province. Our goal now is to delay the spread of Omicron until we learn more about it. I also want to remind all of us that while there are many unanswered questions about how the Omicron variant will behave, we know a lot more about COVID now than we did before. This knowledge means we are not going back to step zero. We still have a lot of tools at our disposal to address this new variant.
The new travel ban of visitors from Southern Africa is now in effect in Canada, as the new variant has been detected in a number of countries from that region. Those who've already arrived are being told to quarantine right away.
For all those that have arrived in Canada in the last 14 days, we are asking them to quarantine now and to go for a COVID-19 test. To quarantine and to stay in isolation until they get the result of a negative COVID test.
Travelers who are flying indirectly will need to obtain a negative COVID-19 pre-departure test from a third country before continuing their journey to Canada. These countries include, as Minister Duclos highlighted, Lesotho, Botswana, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Namibia, and Mozambique.
The World Health Organization, meanwhile, is pushing for an international accord to help in future pandemics.
South Africa and Botswana should be thanked for detecting, sequencing, and reporting this variant, not penalized. Indeed, Omicron demonstrates just why the world needs a new accord on pandemics. Our current system disincentivizes countries from alerting others to threats that will inevitably land on their shores.
Now that a new variant is rearing its ugly head, some Canadians are considering getting their children vaccinated. Our poll question this month is, are you planning on having your child age 5 to 11 vaccinated against COVID-19? The new Pfizer pediatric jabs are now available in Canada. Make sure you log on to our website, bridgecitynews.ca, and let us know your thoughts. We will tabulate the results and have them for you on Tuesday's newscast. Well, the strong Chinook winds we've been experiencing here in southwestern Alberta rattled some windows over the weekend. Jeanette Rocher is here now with a quick peek at the weather forecast. Jeanette, will we be receiving a reprieve anytime soon?
Well, unfortunately, the wind isn't going away anytime soon. Hal, this evening we can be looking at another 60 kilometer per hour gusts. Overnight low of 2 degrees. That should be rising to +7 by the morning and then rising to 11 tomorrow. But Tuesday also brings with it more wind. We're looking at up to 70 gusts tomorrow and more wind tomorrow evening as well. So I will tell you if there's still more wind expected the rest of the week. That's coming up later on in the show.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Alberta's ombudsperson says she cannot legally investigate a complaint against the consolidation of EMS dispatch. The cities of Lethbridge, Calgary, Red Deer, and the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo filed a complaint with the Office of the Alberta Ombudsman last month. In a release, Alberta's ombudsperson, Marianne Ryan, says her powers of investigation do not apply to health authorities. Her ability to investigate AHS decisions would require a change in legislation. Red Deer's Mayor Ken Johnston said he spoke with Ryan and was surprised that she cannot investigate, but said that is not their only iron in the fire. Bridge City News also reached out to the City of Lethbridge for a reaction, but has yet to hear back. The Trudeau Liberals have introduced legislation that would provide sick leave to some workers while at the same time bringing down the law on anyone harassing healthcare employees. The bill would provide 10 days of paid sick leave to federally regulated workers and create new offenses in the criminal code for anyone threatening a healthcare worker and a second for anyone obstructing a healthcare facility.
Let's put our workers in a better position to make the responsible choice when we ask them to do this again. And we will, at some point, we will. There will be another pandemic, likely. When that happens, we need to be ready. It would be irresponsible for us, I think, for the federal government not to take a leadership position and protect those workers and their families where we can.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and BC Premier John Horgan said they created a new joint committee to deal with the devastation caused by the flooding in BC. There was also a promise to match donations given to the Canadian Red Cross.
Our first priority is to be there for people, which is why we've deployed over 500 Canadian Armed Forces members with helicopters and planes, almost $4.5 million straight to First Nations communities immediately to help them through this moment, and over $4 million for the Port of Vancouver. And as John just said, really pleased that the federal government and the provincial government are matching donations with the Red Cross. So $1 donated by you results in $3 of support for people on the ground who desperately need it.
Hollywood actor Leonardo DiCaprio, a known climate activist, has allegedly come out in support of protesters who've been participating in illegal and dangerous blockades opposing the Coastal GasLink project in northern BC. Mr. DiCaprio does not apparently think that First Nations group are in support of the project. Now, according to Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas, who's been a staunch supporter of the oil and gas sector, nothing could be further from the truth.
Well, we certainly know that the vast majority of Indigenous folks do support it. We know that there are many high-paying jobs that are created because of it. We know that there's a great deal of wealth and prosperity to be gained if this project were to move forward. Former Hereditary Chief Teresa today has come out and she said, look, this is a great project. We want this project. The vast majority of people have spoken. And so there's just a few, opposing voices that are shouting in the wind. And Leonardo DiCaprio decided that he would take up their cause, but they really aren't the majority. We see a climate change activist who is attempting to use Indigenous groups as a cover for his own activism. And I think it's really dishonest, and it's actually harmful for those who are wanting to pursue economic prosperity for themselves and for their communities.
The Christmas Hope campaign ensures less fortunate members in our community receive everything they need for the Christmas season. The initiative is hoping to serve an estimated 2,000 adults and 4,500 kids. The 6 partner agencies for the campaign are in need of additional donations for this year. The Lethbridge Family Services Angel Tree campaign is looking for more toys. Toys are needed for gift bundles for close to 3,000 children, newborn to 18 years of age, and 100 adopted families.
Super popular toys this year are science kits. So if you look behind me, you will see very few science kits left. We're always looking for more science kits. We want to give a book to every single child. That is our goal this year, and we desperately need books for all ages. We have barely any books in our Angel Tree Toy Depot, and Barbies and dolls, we can't keep them on the shelves. So those are the main items that we need. And then I feel like a broken record, but Lego, every year I ask for Lego. And again, this year we need Lego.
Now, if you'd like to volunteer for the campaign this year, you could contact Volunteer Lethbridge directly. The numbers are in from the charity check stop put on by the Lethbridge Police Service. The Sunday event brought in 792 gifts, around 585 kilograms of food, and more than $1,260 in cash and gift cards. This year's recipient was the Christmas Hope campaign. It's a collaborative effort between the Interfaith Food Bank, Lethbridge Food Bank, My City Care, Toys for Tots, and Lethbridge Family Services Angel Tree. Now, if you'd like to still make a donation to the Christmas Hope campaign, they'll be accepted until December the 20th. More information can be found on the Christmas Hope website. The spirit of Christmas was in the air at a house in West Lethbridge on Sunday night. An annual initiative called Christmas with the Caldwells is giving back to those who need it the most. As Micah Quinn reports, A spectacular Christmas house was also in plain view for all to enjoy.
Whether it's characters from hit movies like Home Alone or The Grinch, the Caldwells go all out when decorating their house for the Christmas season. This beautiful display you see here took more than 120 hours to complete.
It progressed as like probably driving around as a child, looking at Christmas lights, and always kind of childhood dream.
The Caldwells are hoping to raise 2,021 pounds of food for the Lethbridge Food Bank this year. They are also looking for toy donations that will benefit the Salvation Army's Toys for Tots campaign.
Our 8-year-old daughter thought of that clever idea for 2021.
For food and then toys, I'd love to bring a truck and trailer of toys down. Yeah. And what they don't use this year, they'll use next year. I mean, that charity really needs all the help they can get.
Another initiative that the couple is putting on is called Santa's Bag Giveaways. It began as an incentive for members of the community when they came to drop off donations.
Well, why not contact local businesses? It started out with just our friends to begin with, who had local businesses, who would sponsor a gift from their business, and thought, why not make packages for Santa's Bag Giveaways? That just kind of gives them incentive to make a donation, and they can enter to win, and it's become pretty big.
The spirit of giving was alive and well after a member of the community dropped off a huge donation on Sunday night.
To be honest, today we had someone drop off a $1,000 donation. And, that's Christmas to me, is giving. It's just amazing. Every year we meet new people like this, and it's really cool that we can give people a reason to give.
The couple will be dropping off the donations for Toys for Tots and the Lethbridge Food Bank on December 20th for a final tally of the Christmas goodies. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
That is one spectacular Christmas house. Wow. Well, we don't have it here, but snow has hit many regions across the country. That makes for very treacherous driving conditions. Mona DELANEY is a driver instructor and owner of the Driver's Edge here in Lethbridge. She says when it comes to driving in winter, it's imperative that you make time and clear off most of the snow off your vehicle.
You need to clean the snow off your windows, your roof, the hood of your car, the trunk of your car, your lights, your license plate. Otherwise, you can be fined for not cleaning off your vehicle. And, even your license plate alone, the law says it has to be clean and readable at all times. The fine for that is $155. I'm not sure what the fines are for not cleaning your windows off, but even in the Highway Traffic Act and Motor Vehicles Act, it does say that even the snow blowing off your vehicle, if it causes a collision with other drivers, you can be fined.
Mona DELANEY with Driver's Edge will have more winter driving tips coming up in the second half of our program. A Lethbridge drug dealer who was caught dealing drugs close to 2 years ago has been sent to a federal penitentiary. Nicholas Galbraith, who pleaded guilty in September to drug possession and trafficking, was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Police say Galbraith was watched for 6 days back in March of 2020, where he was engaged in illegal drug activity. In addition to his prison term, Galbraith is also prohibited from possessing certain weapons for 10 years and others for life. RCMP and Cardston have responded to comments made on social media after it was discovered that one of their officers used a taser on a man from the Blood Tribe. Last Tuesday, a confrontation ensued on the Kainai Nation between Dylan Bird, who was wanted for outstanding warrants, and an RCMP officer from Cardston, where the officer was being threatened with what appeared to be a metal pipe. The officer's dash cam footage captured the incident, where the officer told Bird to put the pipe down, but instead, Bird attacked him with it.
An interaction occurred in which the subject struck the officer with the metal pipe, and our officer deployed a conducted energy weapon. Both the first and second deployments of the conducted energy weapon were unsuccessful in gaining control of the subject. At 9:30 a.m., our officer called for assistance. A nearby officer immediately attended the location to assist in the subject's arrest. As the subject continued to be combative and resistant, officers used force to take him into custody.
Wright says the officer was treated for his injuries in hospital and later released. Police say they're conducting an internal review to gather a full account of what exactly transpired. A challenge over the job for Manitoba Premier was back in court on Monday. Shelley Glover, who lost the PC leadership race to Heather Stephenson, alleges there were irregularities when the ballots were counted. She wants a judge to order a new vote. Glover, her scrutineer, and 2 other supporters have filed affidavits to support her allegations. Their statements are to be examined over the next couple of days. Canada's new Chief of the Defence Staff says the current sexual misconduct crisis in the Canadian military is self-inflicted. He says he's open to new ways of addressing the problem, which includes more oversight of the military and a way for troops to file complaints outside of their chain of command.
We don't have all the solutions ourselves, and we would be lying to ourselves if we thought we could generate internal solutions for this. So I welcome external expertise, external advice, external solutions for what we're facing, and I've made it clear that we are going to welcome oversight. We're going to welcome external reviews to help us make the institution better.
Jennifer Jones beat Tracy Fleury to win the women's final at Canada's Olympic curling trials. Brad GUSHUE booked his ticket for the Beijing Games later with a 4-3 victory over Brad Jacobs.
There was lots of tiebreakers, but yeah, I felt like we were in the game from start to finish. I felt like we could kind of control the game, and I can't remember missing such a bad shot to win a game. And my team hung in there, and we made 2 good ones on my last 2, and made her make a hard shot to win, and got fortunate to win that game.
Today I watched the last end of the women's game, and after it was over, I find myself crying after that. So I knew the emotions were there for tonight. You know, I was crying for Jennifer because she won. I was crying for Tracy because she lost. So there was a lot there tonight. And these games are tough, but boy, oh boy, did we play good. And I thought we managed the game. And I heard boring out there, so I apologize to those people that thought it was boring, but I enjoyed myself. Once you're an Olympian, you're always an Olympian. But the special part is the fact that Brett and Jeff are now get that opportunity. They've been 2 of the best players in the world, and have heard stories from myself and Mark for years. Now they get to develop their own memories and have their own experiences, which I'm pumped for.
And we wish all the best going out to the Jennifer Jones foursome and as well Brad GUSHUE's foursome in Beijing. Well, it's barely sweater weather here in southwestern Alberta thanks to the mild temperatures we've been enjoying. Will the double-digit temperatures be sticking around? Full weather details are coming up after the break. You know, the winds were so strong on Sunday, you could literally see my fence waving from side to side. You know, I only enjoy seeing a wave at the beach or maybe with fans at football games or hockey games. Jeanette Rocher is here now with a complete look at our weather forecast. Jeanette, it appears as though the Chinook winds may be coming and going for a little while longer.
Yeah, and probably headaches will be sticking around too. Those always come with those Chinook winds. And as we mentioned before, 60 kilometer per hour winds expected this evening. Into tomorrow, we're looking at another 50 to 70K wind gusts, but a high of 11 degrees tomorrow. So I guess that is the compromise there. 11 degrees also expected on Wednesday, looking at windy conditions as well. Same thing for overnight. Thursday, we are looking at a 30% chance of rain though, and a high of 4 degrees. And then that temperature is going to bottom out to 0 degrees for the weekend. We're looking at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with a high of only 0. And look at those overnight lows getting down into the minuses there. So average high for this time of year, 1 degree, average low, -10. 17 was where we were at back in 1969. And we were at -31 in 2006. 8:04 is when the sun rose this morning, and the sun set this afternoon at 4:35 p.m. It seems to be getting earlier and earlier, and the days are getting very short as we're getting close to that winter solstice. Heavy rains expected again tomorrow in Vancouver, looking at 30 to 40 millimeters tomorrow, high of 10. 10 degrees expected in Victoria, also rain expected there. Chance of showers tomorrow in Edmonton with a high of 4 degrees, and Calgary sitting at 10 degrees tomorrow with a mix of sun and cloud and 50K winds there as well. Saskatoon looking at flurries tomorrow, 2 degrees the high. 5 degrees the high tomorrow in Regina. Snow expected there as well. -3 the high in Winnipeg with flurries and freezing rain expected there as well. As we look to the central part of the country, snow expected tomorrow in Toronto. 4 degrees the high, 0 the high in Ottawa with mainly cloudy skies. Mix of sun and cloud tomorrow in Montreal. -2 is the high there. As we look further east into Atlantic Canada, let's take a look at what's going on there. -2 the high in Fredericton with the mix of sun and cloud. Halifax looking at a mix of showers and flurries. 0 the high, freezing rain expected in Charlottetown with a high of 1 degree. 12 degrees expected in St. John's, looking at up to 50 millimeters of rain expected there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Nissan is investing close to $18 billion US over the next 5 years and developing a cheaper, more powerful battery to boost its electric vehicle lineup. Officials at the Japanese automaker say 15 new electric vehicles will be available by the year 2030. They say they're aiming for a 50% electrification of the company's models. The company says it wants to cut emissions and meet various customers' needs, but Nissan says it will also reduce carbon emissions at its factories. Calgary-based Vermilion Energy announced a $556 million deal to purchase Equinor Energy Ireland, a company that owns 36.5% of the Corrib natural gas project. The deal will boost Vermilion's operating interest in the project off the coast of Ireland to 56.5%. Vermilion also announced an exploration and development capital budget of $425 million for next year, with just over half going to drilling 50 new wells in North America. The company also says it plans to reinstate a quarterly dividend of 6 cents per share starting in the first quarter of next year. Twitter has announced that co-founder Jack Dorsey will step down as CEO of the social media platform. The company's current chief technology officer, Parag Agrawal, will take over as CEO. Dorsey will remain on the board until his term expires next year. In a letter posted on his Twitter account, Dorsey says it was his decision to leave the company. Dorsey is also the top executive at financial payments company Square, and some big investors had openly questioned whether he could be effective leading both. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 23 points on the day to finish at 21,148. The Dow was up 236 points to 35,135. The S&P 500 was up 60 points to 4655, and the Nasdaq was up 291 on the day to 15,782. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $1.80 to $69.95 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 62 cents to $4.85 US. Gold was up 7 cents to $17.8467 US an ounce, and silver was even on the day at $22.91 US an ounce. Wheat is at $12.14 per bushel, barley's at $9.71, canola's at $23.18, and corn is at $10.80 per bushel. Live cattle were down $1.18 to $136.93. Feeder cattle were down $1.43 to $165.73, and lean hogs were down 80 cents to $72.40. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 78.46 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Alberta health officials have contacted people who have traveled from one of the southern African countries of interest for the Omicron COVID-19 variant in the past 14 days. Dr. Dean Enshaw made this statement following news that Ontario detected Canada's first 2 known cases of Omicron on Sunday in Ottawa. Quebec also reported a confirmed case on Monday. Henshaw did not specify how many travelers in Alberta have been contacted, but said they must quarantine for 14 days from their return date and get tested. She said so far there are no confirmed cases here in our province. A high-ranking general with the Islamic Republic of Iran has made a call for the total elimination of Israel. Coming up, we chat with our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari about what that latest threat means not only for the Jewish state, but also for many of us here in the West. After a 5-month hiatus, talks between world powers have begun once again to try and salvage the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran. To talk about this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, talks will resume, but apparently expectations are quite low.
Yeah, expectations are low because the optics are not good. We're going back to the negotiating table with an unwilling partner. Things are different from 2015. The Iranian regime is not backing down. They have obviously a much more hardline president in office, Raisi. They are cracking down on protesters. They are doubling down on their desire to enrich uranium at a 60% or higher standard. And they have not stopped any of their nefarious activities, whether it's in maritime activities or it's in drones or in supporting Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis in Yemen. They have their hands in terrorism throughout the region. When we look and connect the dots, whether it's in Syria and Iraq and Lebanon and Gaza and everywhere else. So it doesn't look good. The only thing that is the same as 2015 is the desire by the administration here in the United States to get back into a deal. So you have a Biden administration that is pining for a deal, regardless of what the optics look like, regardless of how the Iranian regime is behaving. They want to remove those sanctions. They want to remove all the penalties. They want to get the money back to the Iranian regime and play this game of appeasement. But again, the Iranian regime is making it very difficult for them and making it seem as though this is not going to go through, because they're coming out with daily threats, chest thumping, and making it known that they're not going to have any sort of behavioral changes or whatsoever, or changes in their weapons program. So it's going to be an uphill battle. But again, when you have Washington really, really going for it, it's going to be difficult to not get a deal.
Meanwhile, let's talk a bit about Israel. That country is developing its ability to conduct a military strike against Iran's nuclear program should circumstances demand it. Lisa, it held large-scale exercises in the north this month and plans to hold 30% more drills next year compared to this year.
Right. It's important to segue from the story about Iran nuclear talks to what is Israel's reaction. On the eve of getting back into these nuclear talks, you have the general of the IRGC in Iran, again, doubling down on its threat to take Israel off the map, to end Zionism and to annihilate Israel. Those are exact phrases taken from his statement. So obviously, Israel has to do its own work behind the scenes, because while the United States and Israel will always be allied, right now it looks like the United States has been a bit estranged from its partner Israel in the region. If you're going back with such a rush and hurry to the negotiating table with the enemy of your ally, it's not a good look, particularly as the Iranian regime makes more threats against Israel. So what has Israel done? They are partnering up with Arab states in the region to have a coalition to fight the Iranian regime should this go any further, should the Iranian regime have weapons and the capability to strike Israel. Remember, the Iranian regime has always referred to Israel as the small Satan and the United States as the big Satan. So the small Satan is within their reach. So if they should want to attack, they will attack Israel. And of course, they've made no qualms, or they're not hiding that agenda, right? So right now we have, Israel preparing and coming up with what they call a plan B, should this deal go through, and should Iran again act on its threats against Israel.
Let's circle back to the threat for just a moment here, Lisa. A spokesperson for the Islamic Republic of Iran's armed forces urged the total elimination of the Jewish state during a recent interview. Now, this general has said they will not back off from the annihilation of Israel. So what has Israel's response been recently? And how about the Biden administration? You said that Israel and the U.S. will always be allies.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, right, Hal? And I think that's this rift that has been created, even if it's at the podium only, even if it's by words only, it's quite significant. Look, Israel is the size of the state of New Jersey. That's always been said. And they are our ally in the region. We give them aid. They give us a lot of intel. They give us help with so many technological advances here, whether it's in hospitals, whether it's an app on your phone, so many technological advances in the military world. The Iron Dome is coming perhaps to the Western world again. So, it's the fact that this looks very bad when the Iranian regime continues to threaten Israel, and we are gunning for this deal and going fast forward into a deal with the enemy, sworn enemy, when on the eve, even that's the main point here, Hal, is that they're not even trying to be on their best behavior in order to get a deal. That's how badly they believe the Biden administration wants this deal. So the Iranian regime has continued with its support of terrorism. They've continued with their bad behavior. They've continued with not allowing transparency with their nuclear program. They're not letting the IAEA have the amount of surveillance that they want, that is standard for this kind of deal. All they want is the money. They want the sanctions removed, and they want to do whatever they want to grow their empire. This is the original Islamic State, is the Shiite Islamic State of the Iranian regime, which they have been trying to build since 1979 with the toppling of the Shah and the creation of this Islamic State. That there's no other way to put it, that they have tried to push their Shiite agenda in the region. And let me tell you, the Obama administration helped them. And now the Biden administration, although the optics don't look as good as they did did back then, they're trying to help them as well. And when the Iranian regime comes to the table knowing that they have the upper hand because they believe that the Biden administration wants this deal so badly, that's not a good place to start for negotiations whatsoever.
Lisa, high inflation has been a huge topic of discussion across North America. Here in Canada, we're dealing with inflation over 4%. I know it's also a big issue for you in the United States. As we've seen groceries go through the roof, the cost of groceries and rent has gone up quite a bit. It appears as though the Biden administration is blaming inflation on the COVID-19 pandemic.
They blame everything on the COVID pandemic. This is an easy way to push change through society and have people accept that change because of a pandemic. The pandemic has induced fear, and fear makes people less likely to complain about different changes, about wearing masks, about their children wearing masks in school, about the price of gasoline. We're almost at $6 a gallon here in Southern California, probably the most expensive in the nation. The price of food. Right now, we had Thanksgiving here in the States where we're coming up on Christmas and New Year's. It's a time where people have family gatherings and they want to make it special. They want to buy gifts for their children. They want to have dinners, and things are, people are noticing, right? When you go to the store, you're paying much more for basic things, let alone gifts and other luxury items. So with that, again, when they blame it on the pandemic, people have to throw their hands up and say, it is what it is. We're all going through the same thing. It's a global pandemic, so everyone's going through it. They're not looking at the legislation. They're not looking at the policies. They're not looking at the ideology of the current administration that is leading the country in a certain way, that is causing the inflation, that has, all of these goods lined up at our ports, unable to kind of meet the supply and demand. And because of that, experts are saying the demand will go down because the supply is not coming through. This is horrible for our economy, obviously. This is horrible for the global economy. And again, they'll continue to blame it on the pandemic. And now we have a variant. So again, people are scared and they have to sit back and not complain about any of these changes.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about that. The first North American Omicron cases have been identified here in Canada, 2 cases in our nation's capital in Ottawa. What's it been like so far in the United States? Any reports of the new cases of the new COVID-19 variant?
Yeah, great question, right? Everyone's waiting. We just had a press conference with the president to talk about this variant. And it seems like the only thing this variant has brought, particularly to the United States, is fear, more fear. And more fear of saying there might be a shutdown. People whose businesses are just trying to get back off the ground from being shut down, restaurants and other places of business, nail salons and gyms and other things. They are in fear. They're living in fear that tomorrow we'll have another shutdown, and the next day and the next day. We also have a governor here in California, for example. I bring up California not only because I live here, but it's really a microcosm of what's going on in this country, where the governor puts back in a state of emergency, which we have had for almost 2 years, and he goes off to Mexico with his family. There's a lot of hypocrisy. A lot of people are starting to notice, which is a good thing. But on the flip side, no one's going to complain because these are state mandated or trying to make them federal mandated in some cases. Thankfully, those mandates are being overturned one by one. But why do we have to take them to court to say that this is not freedom? This is not the way people want to live. So this new variant, some people are saying it's more transmissible, and some are saying that is not the case. That has not been proven. What I do want to point out is that I did read this morning that the original cases in Africa were individuals who were vaccinated. So when they try to push this agenda of you have to get vaccinated, which, it should be a personal choice, we also have to put these other facts side by side and say the people who are catching the variant are also vaccinated. So, it's very circular in its reasoning. A lot of people are asking questions. Look, I understand this is a pandemic. We're paving our own way. Nobody really knows. A lot of this is very new, but a lot of it is blindly being pushed, and a lot of people are asking questions. And I think this new variant, it reminds us of, all the previous variants, and the fear that society will shut down once again, that children will not have that sense of normalcy when they go to school, and schools may be shut down, businesses may be shut down. So we shall see. We don't have cases here in the United States so far, but because it's appeared in parts of Europe, in Canada, I'm sure it's only going to be a matter of time before we see cases here in the United States as well.
A top official with the World Health Organization criticized the recent travel bans being placed on southern African nations amid concern over that COVID-19 variant Omicron. Now, the WHO's regional director for Africa, Lisa, says the travel restrictions may slightly reduce the spread, but it also places a heavy burden on people's livelihoods.
It does. And again, this has been the actual, the problem with deciding on how to go forward. They say it's for our own good to shut down society, but yet it shuts, there are other side effects. And Hal, you and I have talked about this for almost 2 years, coming up on the 2-year anniversary of this pandemic. Shutting down caused suicide and a lot of depression and drug overdose, and children who are going to forever be scarred by this, lack of interaction and, the academic setbacks and the social setbacks for children in school. So many restaurants in Los Angeles, for example, weren't able to open back up. So this example of South Africa shutting its borders and not allowing them to fly, into other countries. Yes, they say it's for their own good, but again, these are the other unintended consequences of shutting down. And I'll also bring it to your attention that we had this under President Trump, where he tried to close the borders, and it was criticized by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, who are now closing the borders. Look, it's really there's so much political play mixed into what is the best for people and for society and for our well-being. And then we talk about, the health consequences versus the other consequences, economic, psychological, and other. So, I think this debate will be ongoing, and I understand the concern of those who are in South Africa. But we shall see what happens in the weeks to come. We'll see if this variant is as dangerous as the Delta was, and what this means going forward. If we're going to have variant after variant, we're just going to have this forever. It's just going to be one, emergency after the other, using these powers to shut borders, to shut businesses, to shut schools. We shall see where it takes us.
Yeah, wave after wave after wave. It does seem to be never ending. You're right. Lisa, around 27 Russian diplomats are being kicked out of the United States. Officials say the group will be leaving on January 30th. What happened?
Yeah, look, this is heating up, right? So this is not the first group of diplomats to be expelled from the United States, but they'll be leaving on January 30th. A spokesman from their group said, we're running thin. Our staff here is very low. Didn't talk about the political consequences of this row between the United States and Russia, but it seems as though this row is heating up. And to expel these diplomats is extremely symbolic. Obviously, we're asking questions of Russia in many ways, particularly in ransomware and in hacking, and obviously in their nefarious activities in different places in the world. So there are a lot of questions, but it seems like it's like a cold rift between the two. There's no real dialogue. There's no answers that are being given. There's no transparency coming from Russia, obviously. And this is the way Putin plays his game. So the only recourse the United States has is to expel them and not allow them to have the influence and have the ability to spy and get into our infrastructures, cyber and otherwise, to get rid of the influence of the Russians on U.S. soil.
Taiwan deployed its Air Force over the weekend in an effort to drive back many Chinese aircraft that entered its air defense base. Lisa, China reportedly deployed aircraft into the area as part of gray zone warfare with the island nation.
Yep. Talking about things heating up, we're talking also about Taiwan and China. China very, very slowly and sometimes more obviously instigating with Taiwan. We know that they have talked about this for a very long time, and we've been warned by Taiwan that this has been happening. And now they're showing tangible signs of encroachment, where they're in their airspace. And Taiwan did not shy away from calling in their military over the weekend to get these planes out of their airspace. Look, it's going to be an exchange of hits back and forth, and the Chinese don't seem like they're backing down. But fortunately, the international community is stepping in to defend Taiwan against this big bully China, and we shall see where this takes us.
Absolutely. We'll keep our eye on that situation, that story as it develops. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Thanks so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.
Well, I bet most of us would consider ourselves to be a good driver, but we may get a different answer if we were to ask someone for their opinion on that. So, what should we know about driving more safely? Well, we're going to find out with our guest, Mona DELANEY. She's a driving instructor and the owner of Driver's Edge in Lethbridge. Welcome to Bridge City News, Mona. So great to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, you've been a driving instructor for many years now. So, what are some of the typical bad habits that Lethbridge drivers have?
Well, things that I see when we're on the road there is people tend to be in a rush. They're tailgating, they're impatient, often not signaling. One of the biggest things I also see is that they don't stop at a red light when turning right on red.
Ooh.
They just pause and go.
Okay, and what's the rule for that? You have to sit and count to 3, basically?
Yeah, you need to stop for completely, which is 3 seconds, and then you can turn, right?
Right, exactly. How much of a difference does it make to actually take a driving course from a professional? Are there any stats that indicate a safer driving record?
Well, making your car go from point A to B is a pretty simple process. But by taking a driving course or lessons from a good driving instructor will help you with your observation skills. It builds confidence and it increases your observation skills and helps you develop the ability to read the road. And therefore you can change how you drive before bad things happen. And as far as statistics are concerned, I don't have any stats on that, but most insurance companies look at driver training when someone successfully completes it as the equivalent of 3 years driving experience.
Okay, well, interesting. And is it mainly younger people taking driving lessons, Mona, or is this perhaps also an option for seniors to sharpen their driving skills? Probably most people wouldn't want to admit that they need more driving lessons once they've been driving for many years.
Well, the majority of our clients are younger people. However, we have a lot of adult students, as well as we actually do a lot of brush up lessons with seniors, especially when they have to retest when they turn 75. And plus we also do brush up lessons for people that have their license that want to maybe improve their winter driving skills.
Oh, that's a good point with winter upon us right now. Now, you'd mentioned before impatience and people tailgating. So what advice do you have for people who do tend to be in a hurry and like to tailgate?
Well, number one, don't do it. The number one cause of collisions on our highways, on our roads, is tailgating, is following too closely. Right? That's the number one cause of collisions, is following too closely because you don't have time to react. You need to give yourself more time. Tailgating doesn't get you any faster to your destination. All it does is it increases your chance of being in a collision. Mm-hmm. And no matter how good you are, you can't stop on a dime.
Absolutely. That's so true. And I mean, some people are just impatient drivers. They may not necessarily tailgate, but what advice do you have for, I know some members of my family that I'm thinking about it are the most impatient drivers, and they just get angry at everybody else on the road for taking too long to turn a corner or to change lanes or whatever it may be.
Well, I think it's like anything. We need to be kind and we need to understand that not everybody you share the road with is an experienced driver. Maybe it's somebody that's just got their license. Or maybe it's somebody that's, a little anxious. Maybe they were recently in a collision and, to get back in the car is hard for them. Or maybe it's a senior that, is driving a bit slower to compensate for, other things on the road. So, we just need to be kind.
That's a really good point. And that's things that we don't often think about, right? Especially with the new drivers and stuff. So what are the biggest safety concerns for driving in winter conditions? What should we watch out for?
Well, a lot of the safety concerns in winter is you need to make sure your vehicle is equipped for winter driving. Things like putting winter tires on, making sure you've got winter windshield washer fluid in your vehicle and you've got wipers that are good for your vehicle for the season that we're in. And make sure you clean your vehicle off. Scrape off all the windows. If you're going out of town, make sure you let someone know where you're going. Make sure that you tell them the route you're taking when you expect to arrive. And, especially we haven't had any bad weather yet, but, when you're driving in poor visibility, even if it's daytime, put your headlights on so that other drivers can see you. And things to watch out for, well, make sure you're watching for weather and road conditions. Understand that other drivers might be going slower as they're nervous and might not be as skilled as you are. And not all vehicles have winter tires. So, it's going to take them longer to stop, and they will more likely slide, right? And have a harder time getting going from a stop position. And also remember, bridges and overpasses will be way more slippery than the rest of the road when the temperature drops significantly, because there's no ground underneath it keeping it warm, and it does freeze up. And so you got to be really careful accelerating or braking over a bridge or an overpass.
Yeah, exactly. You've touched on so many points that I was meaning to ask you about. So I know in Lethbridge we have some long, steep hills that see a lot of accidents, particularly in the winter. So are there any specific downhill driving tips there?
Well, first of all, control your speed before you start going down that hill. Hard braking is going to result in you skidding out, which causes collisions, right? And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, even when you're driving an automatic vehicle, you can still shift down into those lower gears that are on your gear shift. And by doing that, you're actually using the engine compression to slow your vehicle down without you having to brake.
Wow. Now, probably a lot of people that drive automatics don't realize that they can do that. So how do they learn how to do that? Should they just pull it up on a YouTube video, or what? What's the best advice for that?
I suppose they can. They can always take a lesson by driver's edge. That's part of our winter driving, right? Even going into a parking lot and, in a safe environment where there's nobody really around, and learning to, shift down through those gears. A lot of the vehicles now that are being made have that Tiptronic transmission where you can put it into the gears, where you can shift through the gears completely, right? And it's a great way to slow your car down, and when you're driving on really icy roads, so that you don't have to brake as hard and slide.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm in a driver's ed course right now. So Mona, how about what is the best way to get traction when starting to drive from a full stop on a slippery road? Sometimes we all see it happen. The tire spins, we don't go anywhere.
Exactly. But the biggest thing is don't gun it. Just really gentle pressure on your gas pedal, and understand it's going to take you longer to get going. And so make sure that vehicles are further away before you start to pull out than you normally would.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And you'd mentioned winter tires. So how much of a difference do these winter tires make? Is it worth it to get them?
Absolutely worth it to get them. Winter tires are made of a softer rubber compound, and they have superior traction in the winter compared to your regular all seasons, which really aren't made for winter at all, especially here. And you can really tell who has the winter tires and who doesn't, right? The difference you have in the control when you're stopping and getting going is absolutely night and day. So it's totally worth it to get them.
Okay. And then you'd also mentioned making sure that your windows are properly wiped off. I know I'm guilty of this, but sometimes people do drive with very poorly scraped windows, which makes it hard to see, obviously. So are there any rules when it comes to scraping windows? I know, like I said, I'm guilty of that sometimes. You don't give yourself enough time and you don't want to...
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, you need to clean the snow off your windows, your roof, the hood of your car, the trunk of your car, your lights, your license plate. Otherwise, you can be fined for not cleaning off your vehicle. And, even your license plate alone, the law says it has to be clean and readable at all times. The fine for that is $155. I'm not sure what the fines are for not cleaning your windows off, but even in the Highway Traffic Act and Motor Vehicles Act, it does say that even the snow blowing off your vehicle, if it causes a collision with other drivers, you can be fined.
Wow. See, and like this is stuff that it's so easy to forget about when you're a seasoned driver and you've been driving for many years. You just kind of get in your car and you go and you don't think about it. You'd also mentioned windshield washer fluid being topped up. I know, especially living here in Chinook territory where it's cold and it's warm, cold and warm. I mean, we're constantly seeing that snow melt and we're always using our windshield wiper fluids. And yeah, you're right. That makes a huge difference. Also, I guess when the wipers have ice on them, we need to make sure that the ice is all knocked off of them, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. That should be part of your routine when you come out to clean your car off. Start your car, get your defrost on, and clean your car off properly. And then usually by then your car is warm enough for you to be driving it. And, if your windshield wiper is full of ice, you're not going to be able to use them properly to see out your window.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's all just giving yourself more time in the morning in the winter. It's just something we have to live with.
Most people aren't aware of it. You can actually get a ticket if you don't have windshield washer fluid in your reservoir in your vehicle.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even know that. I guess how would they know except if your windows were completely muddy and it was pretty obvious.
Exactly.
Now, Mona, here in Lethbridge, we have a lot more roundabouts and traffic circles than we used to. So can you maybe remind people what the rules are on these? I know this is a personal pet peeve of mine.
Okay, so first rule that you have to know is the vehicles on your left have the right of way. Okay, so that means when you're entering the circle, you have to yield to people already in the circle, because they're on your left. The second thing is you shouldn't be lane changing in a traffic circle. Whatever lane you enter in, you need to stay in it and exit out of it. And then the third rule that we teach is unless otherwise posted, drivers entering the traffic circle on the outside or the right lane should take the first exit. Now, an example is if you come up to the top of Whoop Up Drive and Mady Trail, there's that big traffic circle. That particular one is otherwise posted where that outside right lane can take the first or the second exit. And one of the other things that's really important is that drivers signal right to tell you that they're planning to exit. And you don't want to signal too soon. So when you pass the exit just before the one you want, you should signal. And it doesn't even hurt when you're entering the circle if you're not taking the first exit to signal left, to let other drivers that are wanting to enter the circle know that you're continuing around the circle. Signaling is huge. It's communication.
Absolutely. What about driving tips for highways? I know we're talking a lot about city driving, but especially in the wintertime, do you have any specific advice for drivers when traveling at high speeds?
Well, biggest thing is increase your following distance. The faster you go, the longer it takes you to stop, right? Scan ahead. Scanning ahead is huge. Look for cross traffic, other side roads that are coming onto your highway. And for people pulling out, make sure you're checking your rearview mirror every 8 to 12 seconds. It's important as a driver, no matter where you're driving, to know who's behind you, who's coming up beside you, who might pass you, right? And look at the yellow lines on the road. They're there for a reason. And if the line is not broken, you shouldn't be passing. And one of the biggest things is be patient. Be patient, especially in the winter. Some drivers are more nervous. They're going to drive slower. And just be patient and don't pass when it's not safe.
Yeah, good advice there. Driver fatigue also can be an issue, especially on the highway. So how do you know when it's time to take a break?
Well, there's some common symptoms of fatigue. Okay. So yawning, lack of coordination, tendency to stare, aggressiveness, itchy eyes, irritability, and you even have optical illusions. So, if you're feeling any of these things, it's always a good idea to pull over and take a rest. And it is recommended if you're on a long trip, every couple hours to take a break, get out, stretch your legs, get some fresh air. And remember, if you're feeling tired, the best solution for fatigue is sleep. So pull over somewhere safe and have a cat nap.
Yeah, great advice there. Any final advice for staying safe on the roads, Mona?
Well, just remember that driving is a team sport. and we all want to try to get home safe, you know, and as I tell our students, drive safe, you stay beautiful.
Awesome. Great advice. I feel like I just went through driver's training 101 there with you. Thanks so much for being with us today, Mona.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Mona Delaney is the owner of Driver's Edge in Lethbridge. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.